When you start a business, you're an implementer. You're implementing everything. Then you graduate to becoming a manager. Then you graduate to becoming a leader. Then you graduate to becoming an investor. Carl Taylor is an expert when it comes to helping people go from the implementer to the manager stage. That's why in this interview, we're going to be talking about how to escape your business and become the leader and then eventually the investor you were meant to be. We all start our own businesses because we want to be masters of our own destiny. We want to be able to control our lives, and we want the freedom to take time off, go on holiday, maybe pop off to the cinema in the afternoon. We start our own businesses because we want to be the captains of our own ship. However, it doesn't always work out that way, which is why today we're going to be talking about how to build a business that runs without you. And it's a lofty topic. It's a lofty goal, which is why we're so lucky to have with us right now Carl Taylor, who is the founder of the automation agency. He's a best-selling author. Go check out his books, Red Means Go and Becoming Bulletproof. And he's totally obsessed with systems. Now, I have known you, Carl, for a really long time.
Yeah.
Do you remember where we met?
Yeah, my memory, I was thinking about this before we jumped on this. I remember we have a mutual friend, Seb, and you were in Sydney up from Melbourne for an event relating to Anthill. I think you were interviewing, I don't remember if Seb was on stage or not. I think Mike Cannon-Brooks maybe, or at least one of the Atlassian guys was on stage. There was maybe another two. And there was this drinks thing and Seb's like, come along. And so I come along and I watch, and then after the event, Seb's like, "Hey, come and meet James." And so we had a very brief chat. It wasn't super long. We were at a pub.
Says, Carl, friend of Seb.
I love that it hasn't changed in your phone at all. So
and
yeah,
that was almost a decade ago.
Yeah,
maybe
totally
longer.
would have been a decade ago. Yeah, because it would have been around back then. I think I still had my IT company, or I just sold my IT company. So it was around the 2010, 2011 kind of time frame. So that's literally a decade or more ago.
Yeah. So without going into your history, Carl has been involved in a lot of really interesting businesses in the digital space. He's a real big fan of Superman. You can see Superman behind him. He's also a little bit obsessed about the origins and histories of religion. Hey, tell me, the origins and history of religion and your obsession with that, how does that translate to running a business?
Well, the way it translates is at the end of the day, this is kind of talks about, it's the topic of becoming bulletproof, is life and the world we live in is made up of the stories we tell ourselves, either individually or as a society. And religions, I'm a spiritual dude. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a religious man. Because to me, religions are humans have come together and created these stories around what things mean. Do this and it means this. Don't do this and it means that. If you do this, you will go to hell. If you do this, and yet if you dig deep enough into the origins of that, you can find the timeline of when the concept of hell even started being talked about. Before that, it wasn't even a known thing. And then from then on, it becomes this big thing. So if you think about in your business, we've all had those journeys of how much you think you can earn. I still remember many, many years ago, getting together with a bunch of friends, starting a mastermind. And we all sat around and our dream was like, if I could just make 10 grand a month, that was our big dream. Now, every single one of us in that mastermind, we look at that now and go like, oh, 10 grand a month. We were thinking so small, like we make significantly more than that. But what's the difference? The stories we tell ourselves, our mindset of what's possible, the people we surround ourselves and what society tells us is possible. So the religion, like the origins of religion it's so much just how society of humans work, the way our minds work and everything about us, even current, and when I talk about religions, we can talk about, religions like Christianity and Muslim and Hindu and all of that. But we can also talk about the idea of religion of people who are full hardcore capitalists versus socialists. And you've got like, that could have the exact same structure of a religion. It's the same diehard belief, this is the way the world works. So yeah,
I love
fascinating stuff.
I love the idea is that, yeah, we are the stories that we tell ourselves. That's a really important lesson. The thing interesting about you, Carl, is that you've sold like 2 or 3 businesses by now. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a big nod here. Two or three businesses, which does lead, which is a long stretch away from, hey, I want to do $10,000 a month. But that does actually lead us into this topic of automation, because I'm sure when you sell a business, you can only sell a business that can largely run itself. And I've seen this again and again. People are so tied, they're so intrinsically part of their business that they can't sell it. So is that part of the reason why you ended up developing the automation agency, and why we're talking about this today? You discovered that you had a knack that allowed you to sell these businesses?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Actually, automation agency came about because the business I was running before that was not going that well financially. And I was like, all right, I need to change tack. This is not working very well. I'm gonna quit what I'm doing here, and I'm gonna just get into a done for you. I was doing a coaching model and before that, and I was like, no, I'm going to go into done for you. And at the beginning of automation agency, it very much relied on me. I was doing the sales calls, I was doing the copywriting, I was doing the strategy for clients. And I got to probably about 6 months in, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? I was just teaching people about how to build businesses that worked without them. I have sold my IT company before that. I had a gift basket business as well that I sold. And so it's like, why am I building a business that I could never sell? I'm literally building a cage, a job that I could never sell this business. And so instantly, in 6 months into automation agency, I flipped the model completely on its head, and it became the model that exists now. And now it's evolved over the years. We started it in 2014. I think it was 2014. And now we have the privilege of not only being, a supplier of helping coaches in particular, but a lot of other service providers with building out their teams and helping them install systems and marketing automation that helps their businesses grow. But we now serve a lot of other agencies, and we're the back-end delivery team. So we're able to help many tired one-man band and small agencies get out of their I am the business doing the work, to actually go, you know what, now I can just focus on sales or dreaming about the next thing I want to do. Because I don't know about you, James, but for me, I'm far more of that creative type. I enjoy just coming up with the idea, and I just want to tell someone my idea and I want it done. I don't really want to then get into the nitty gritty of how to do that thing. I just want to be like, okay, I've had this great idea. Who can I give that to? Awesome. Okay, next idea. And that's who I love to serve.
So you can help people with their own automation, but you can help people help their clients with their automation. Hey, just out of curiosity, how many staff do you have?
As of today, I think we're 65.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
I asked that question because I wanted people to know that Carl's business is not some small dinky enterprise. It is the back end to other organizations, which is a powerful thing to know. So of course, we're talking about how to build a business that runs without you. And you've got some ideas, some steps, some stages. Where do you want to start, Carl?
I think it's important to start with the first step is you need to decide that you want to. Over the years, when I meet entrepreneurs, I talk about the idea of building a business that works without you. There are certain business owners out there that their first reaction is like, but I never want to sell my business. I love what I do. I enjoy my business. I'm a coach. I'm really passionate about helping people, which is amazing. Here's the thing, and it's not my place to tell you whether you should or you shouldn't. It's worked really well for me to have this mindset. Just because you build a business that works without you that you could sell doesn't mean you have to sell it. But here's what I will say. A business that can run without you is a far better business to own than a business that you have to show up in every single day, no matter what. So the first decision, the first step is ultimately deciding that, you know what, I actually want to build a business that can work without me. And it's important because if you don't make the decision, you will make other decisions in your business that will hurt your ability to do that. To give you an example, like in the beginning, my business model for automation agency, which relied on me, was high-priced projects, very consultative. You got me. I did a lot of consultative selling. I did a lot of the work, and it was a very high-touch relationship. The model that I now have is a large team, 65 or whatever team number we have right now. It's specifically you're dealing direct with these individual heroes. We call them heroes. We have specific skill set. And our price point though went from being $12,000 to when we launched this new model, it was like $200 a month. Right now, I think we're $425 a month is our starting price. But like, it's a very different pricing model, different billing model. These are decisions that you make because you've got the end goal of I'm building something that can work and survive when I'm long and gone, either from the business because someone else bought it or because I've just stepped back. I mean, back in 2019, for some personal reasons, I had a relationship breakdown, all these things. I stepped away from my business for 8 months. 8 months, just disappeared completely. No Zoom calls, nothing with the team, 8 months. And when I came back, the business was humming along very happily. I'd love to tell you that the 8 months we grew and doubled. We didn't. About the first 4 months, we continued growing. The second 4 months, some cracks started to show. And so I've since come in, I'm trying to fix a lot of those cracks. But there's very few business owners I've met, both in Australia and in the US, who can genuinely say that they could step away from their business for 8 months and still have money coming into their pocket and be, surviving and have a business.
3 months or 2 months or 1 month. The turning point for me is when I was running my print magazine, Anthill Magazine. Loved it. I thought, why would I ever want to do anything other than this? And then I broke my back. And I spent 3 months unable to move, and I had to run the business. And it became very clear to me how important it was to have systems. So number one, decide what you want to do, and I believe we've got 5 items. So what's number 2?
Yes, number 2 is automate. Right. It makes sense. You need to start automating your activities.
Let's just go straight.
Let's go straight into it. Number 2 is automate.
Automation agency says number 2, automate.
But here's most people, when they think about automation, they think about tech. I'm a techie dude. I have an IT company. I taught myself to code, all these things. But to me, automation is about tech and team. It's about how do I just not be the person doing it? And so what you do is you look at what you spend in a day, what you're doing, and you go, okay, what of this can I outsource to something? Can I outsource this to a piece of technology like B2B Dash or some other tool? Can I outsource this to a team like automation agency or a virtual assistant or a physical person? Or can I do a combination of both, where technology is doing some of the heavy lifting and then it's sending some tasks or doing things to people who can do the final bits for it? So you need to automate activities. And there's a specific order that I believe is the right way to go. Obviously, right and wrong is subjective, but this is the model that I think you should do. Start with delivery first. Most people think, oh no, I'm going to outsource my admin. I'm going to outsource my marketing. I'm going to outsource my sales. No, if you're truly committed to building a business that can work without you, the very first bottleneck, especially if you're a service-based business, is the actual delivery of what you do. So that is the first place to start. How do you automate that? So technology, you can start with automating the onboarding process. The way you send contracts, you can start with just automating that technology side. That'll give you maybe a few hours a week or an hour per client you bring on board. You've just bought back some time. The next step is, well, then who's doing the work? How can you step your knowledge? If you're a consultant, you might be like, that's too hard. So it's not about removing you completely, but how can you get some assistance, some other people collecting, collating, managing the relationship so that you're coming in and just doing your little genius that no one else can do until you're at a scale where maybe you can hire someone to take that, or you can use videos or technology to replace it. So the delivery first is a really important thing. Then you go admin. You go like your bookkeeping, your virtual assistant who's maybe helping with filing and just more those admin type tasks that aren't putting money in the bank, but they're important. They need to be done. Then I believe you look at marketing and you start going, okay, how do I automate my marketing? So that starts with technology, obviously. And then from there, you start bringing in other people as well who are either utilizing that technology or even managing it. And then finally, it's sales. Now, the only thing I will say here is if you are you're a better salesman than marketer, then flip sales and marketing around. Whatever you are best at, make that the last thing that you automate. So some people like me, we're better marketers than we are salespeople. There are other people who are just amazing salespeople and maybe marketing is their weakness. So they should automate sales last if that's you.
And it is funny. People do the opposite. They go, all I need is a amazing 360 sales person. And then they'll bring in all the clients and all my problems will be solved. We have a little bit of a process that we use. And I'm not sure if you use the word audit. I think that you might have used the word audit in terms of just evaluating your days, but we have a little bit of a self-assessment where we audit ourselves, and it's just tracking how you're spending your day. And then at the end of the day, you can look at how you spent your time, and we evaluate our time against 3 words. You ready? We say, do we automate, delegate, or detonate?
Yeah.
And surprisingly, there are things that we do during our day that the business doesn't even need, but we've always done them, and we think that our clients want them, and blah, 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 blah. So we have these things that we do. Or it might be like someone told us 10 years ago that we needed to get onto Twitter, and we're managing our Twitter account, and we realized that that stopped working as a business tool 3 years ago. So we can detonate it, automate, detonate, or automate, delegate, or detonate. All right, what's number 3?
So number 3 is once you've automated your operations, that's going to mean that you're now more likely, you've moved from like the sole trader type self-employed level to now you're kind of managing people and technology. So you're still in what I'd consider the operator phase of business. You're still an operator. So how do you jump and make that next step? You've got to start simplifying your operations. So number 3 is simplify operations. And so what does that look like? Simplifying operations means you start doing exactly kind of what you talked about there with Twitter. You manage the business by the numbers. It all now needs to drill down into the numbers. I'm not saying that business is just about numbers. Of course, it's about people and relationships. But when you're managing your business at this point, you need to step away from the emotion. Look, anyone who has a subscription business like I do, the worst thing that can happen, no matter how many clients you have, is when a client cancels, it's like a stab to the heart. It's like, why don't you love me? Why won't you see me? And it still happens to this day. And one of the solutions for me that's worked through that, and many of my friends who have, businesses in a similar model, is you take the emotion out of it and you look at the numbers. When you can go, oh, our churn was 2%, it's very different to I had 10 people who chose to not love me anymore. That's the story that internally we like to tell ourselves. And so by being able to look at it purely as the numbers rather than the individual and the story that's attached to it, you can make better decisions, cleaner, less emotional decisions, and go, okay, I see that we're spending X amount of time here on Twitter. How many leads has it brought us in the last 6 months? None. Let's kill that. That doesn't make sense. Or let's find a strategy that makes this work. Okay, I can see my team are performing like this. This is going well. Oh, our sales have dropped. Instead of it being about, let's talk to the salespeople and hear the stories of what's going on, we can just start to make better decisions based on the numbers. So managing your whole business. So you need to have KPIs. You need to be clear on what they are. Obviously, net profit is a key metric in any business that I believe we should be all optimizing for. Gone are the days, even in the tech world now, that just keep building businesses that don't make profit. We're finally in that turning point where the world's like going, actually, businesses should continue to make profit and not just burn cash like crazy. So this is a good thing. Focus on your profit numbers. I'm not going to give you all the numbers because I think that's a whole podcast in itself.
In our world, we have something called a precision scorecard, and every different division has its own precision scorecard. And the precision scorecard has 4 metrics. So for example, the sales team is one of the metrics is how many meetings are booked in any given week. How many people showed up for the meeting in any given week. How many people were obviously sold as clients on any given week. So we can focus on those metrics. And I loved how you said metrics, not stories, or manage the numbers, not the stories. Because as we said earlier, we've got these stories that we tell ourselves. Then we can also somehow, we unintentionally reinforce unhelpful stories in our brain. So you're talking about a client leaving you. You mentioned the sales team. The sales team says, this is a big problem at this particular time. We look at the metrics and we go, no, that's a story that you're telling yourself. This actually happened in my world. My business partner, John, who heads up the sales division, just this week, he said, I think that there's a problem in the funnel. There's a disconnect at this particular point here because we didn't get as many meetings booked this week. I think that there's a disconnect. And it was all based on his feelings the stories that he was telling himself. And we went in there wasn't a disconnect at all. In fact, we'd booked the same number of meetings we had that week as the other week. Most of the booking had just gone to the other sales rep and not him. So
the power of numbers.
That was the experience. Back to the numbers. All right.
Power of numbers.
So this is cool. Decide what you want, automate, simplify operations. What's number 4?
Yeah. And so part of simplifying operations is not just managing by numbers, but also ensuring that you, as your organization grows, which it will need to in headcounts, different models can get away with different size teams, but make sure that you as the owner are managing no more than 8 people. Because as soon as you're trying to be across too many different departments and different people and lead, it just becomes an absolute mess. There's only so much decision-making ability we have in our heads. There's only so much space holding. So there's a saying, I can't remember who said it, but the idea of like a team should be able to eat from one pizza. And so I think the same idea of I've got a team of 65, but the people I deal with is about 4. I deal with 4 people. They're dealing with then their 4 people or 8 people, and it kind of goes from there. But my job is to deal with 4 people. And so that's a really important part of simplifying your operation so that you're just having to deal with who you need to deal with. You're managing by the numbers. And also it becomes really important at this stage as your team grows. A lot of people you hear, I needed my vision and my mission and my values, and they do that at the beginning. I actually think that's a load of crap to do that at the beginning. When you're a startup, you don't even really know who you are yet. I believe culture, values, all of that becomes more important once you're hitting that growth phase and going, I'm now trying to build a business that works without me. I've automated, we've proved our product and what we do. We've got product market fit. I've started to get some time back. Now it's really important that the people we're bringing on board have the same DNA and culture. So for me, that comes into the simplify operations phase. And I don't worry about that at all when I'm in the automation phase. So that's kind of everything we do at number 3. Number 4 is a bit counterintuitive, but after you've simplified operations, you should now be in what I call the owner phase, meaning you're a leader. You've got your team. For me, it's 4, and your job is leading. Really, the bulk of your time now is about leading, hearing them out, helping set the vision, being almost like the captain of the ship. You're steering, but you're not necessarily the person with the rowing or putting the fuel in the fire. And so what you need to do at this point is you need to scale your interests. And by that, I mean, distract yourself. So most people think, once you get to a certain point, I must stay focused. And you need to do that to get to this point. But once you're here, I believe, in my own experience, is focus ends up being the destruction of your business. Because what happens when you're not needed as much as you used to be, you start to get bored. You've got a lot more time on your hands. And when you're bored, you start looking for problems and you start annoying your team and you start looking at the nitty gritty, and you look at this and you look at that, and a bit like you're saying, John's going like, there's a problem here because he had more time on his hands. I've done this numerous times in my business where I've basically created problems. My IT company in particular, I remember we reinvented it so many times, and I can look back now and go, if we just stayed the course instead of me deciding that we needed to change the model just because I was bored, we would have had a more successful business far sooner. And so it becomes really hard where you've got to keep managing the business and keep your eye on what's happening, but you need enough other interests. And we were talking about this before we started on the podcast. You're like, Carl, do you have any other interests? My other interests are investing. What I've obsessed about, what I've got interested in is spirituality, investing, and that takes up enough time to distract me so that I'm still tinkering. Don't get me wrong. I still tinker with automation, but I'm doing far less damage to the business than I know I could. And it's by having that distraction. And that could be, I've done dance lessons before, I've done singing lessons. Like you try a whole bunch of other things and find other interests. You start to work on your relationships. You start to work on your health and you get fitter. So you need to scale your interests. You need to get distraction.
Even just that wealth creation piece, if things are going well, stop tinkering, have a look at the net profit and use that net profit to try and focus on wealth creation. Because businesses, while they're fun and exciting and we think that they're going to be our nest egg, most of the time they're not. I think it was interesting before when you were talking about the 8 staff. I was listening to an interview the other day, and it was someone interviewing, and I'm trying to remember who the players were, but it was one very successful entrepreneur interviewing another very successful entrepreneur. The one that was the more successful is running, $1 billion organization or an organization worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And then the other guy said, how do you manage that? And he said, I have 7 people who report to me. And that was it. I have 7 people who report to me. And I'm sure that they could all sit around and eat a pizza to follow that analogy.
Yeah, I don't remember who said it, but it's a good thing to always remember. I'm like, all right, as soon as I feel like to get everyone together, I would need more than one pizza. I'm managing too many people. There's too much going on.
People. That's really cool. All right. And the distraction piece is huge. I mean, like we all get distracted.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We all want to fiddle. We all want to tweak. What's our 5th?
5th and final is decide what you're going to do now. Because if you've automated, you've simplified operations. So you're managing only a few people, you're managing by the numbers, you've scaled your interests. So you're doing other things. Building wealth is as you said, is a really great place to focus. Now the question becomes, okay, do I keep the business and do I choose to be the innovator? Because here's one of the things I learned around 2020 is while my business operates really well without me, I realized that it didn't market and innovate without me. And so that one of the next levels for me is how do I get it marketing and innovating more without me? And so that final piece is, are you going to stick around and be the innovator? Because often as the entrepreneur, as the founder, we are that innovator. So as the market changes, it needs the tinkerer to at least set the vision of where we're still going. So you can keep it and just be the innovator. You could keep it and you can get someone else to be the innovator, bring in your CEO, bring in someone else who's going to manage and keep the innovation alive or breed that in your business. Or your third option is you sell and you get out. You sell and you go, I'm done. And you take that cash. And if, let's say, you've gone and bought a whole bunch of properties and they're high leverage, you might use that cash to pay down that debt and live off the property rental income. Or you might go and take that and invest in something else. Or if you're addicted to the craziness of startup, you might go and start something new.
Or become an angel and invest in someone else's. For that one there, we just basically say sell or scale. So you either sell it or you scale it. And the scale it is when you're throwing your innovation and your expertise and all the other stuff. And you're thinking, how elastic is this brand? And what other divisions can I go down? So before we hit record, Carl and I were talking about how with B2B Dash, we're exploring options to introduce an afterpay element. Now we're nowhere near that yet, but that there is our version of sell or scale. At some point, someone says that they want to buy Dash, we sell it, or we just continue to introduce extra elements. So, hey, Carl, do you mind if I just recap? So I'm just going to run through these 5. Number 1, decide that you want to be more time efficient, that you want to automate, that you want that freedom, that you want a business that runs without you. It's a decision. And once again, we tell ourselves stories. And maybe the story is, that's not possible in my industry. That's BS. Number 2, automate. And there was so much good stuff in there. I think that we could do like 30 minutes just on that automation piece. I threw in my bit, automate, delegate, or detonate. But I really loved how you gave us a sequence. So focus on the bits where you're serving the clients. Number 2, switch to admin. Number 3, then look at marketing. And then look at sales, or you might want to switch around. Number 3, simplify the operations. And we talked a fair bit about the managing the numbers and also making sure that your business doesn't get too big for you. Number 4, embrace the ownership phase, which was really interesting, Carl, because I didn't expect you to say that. But the best owners probably got their hands on the tiller, but not on the ropes or nothing else that happens. And then number 5, what next? Which I framed as sell or scale. This has been really awesome, Carl. Now, I think that we need to make sure that people listening to this can get a little bit more of Carl's magic, a little bit of the secret sauce that makes up Carl Taylor. If people want to get a little bit more involved with you and your world, I think there's 2 things that they can do. You ready? Carl's going, 2? What, 2? Number 1 is that between you and I, we should create the ultimate time saver protocols for B2B business owners. Okay. We should do that. You want to do that?
Yep. Let's do that.
The ultimate time saver protocols for B2B business owners. Excellent. And what is the other way that people can engage and connect with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious way is get involved with Automation Agency. So I love that. We'll create that guide and make sure that's put together. But if you're a coach in particular or a service provider and you're going, I need help to implement all this marketing stuff, sales funnels, graphic design, social posting, all that marketing stuff, and you're like, I don't want to do it anymore. You want it ready to automate your marketing piece. then Automation Agency can help you. Or if you're an agency who is doing marketing stuff for other people, you're building websites, you're setting up email automations, maybe you're just a marketing automation consultant, and you're like, I just want to focus on the selling and the strategy stuff that's fun. I don't want to click the buttons and actually deliver the work, and you want to start doing what I said, automating your delivery, then Automation Agency, we've got an agency scale program specifically for giving you a team to implement your client work for you too. So check us out, automationagency.com. And if you've been listening to this episode, if you send us an email and you say, hey, I was listening to your episode, we'll give you a 30% off on your first month just by letting us know you listen to the app.
That's awesome. We have covered a lot in a relatively short period of time. Any final words of wisdom for our peeps out there, Carl, that want to get their time back, unlock the freedom in their business, become the true captains of their own ships?
It comes back to number one. You got to make the decision. The story of who you'll be and what your life will look like comes down to exactly that. What you tell yourself is possible or isn't possible. And so if you listen to anything today on this episode and you're like, I don't know if that's true, or I couldn't do that, ask yourself the question, my belief that I can't do that, is it true? Can I absolutely know that that's true? And who would I be if I didn't have that thought? Those three questions, it's courtesy of Byron Katie. If you've ever followed any Byron Katie work, love her stuff. But those three questions completely can change your approach and get you out of your own way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Carl.
It was my pleasure, James.